As we've examined the four houses and using what we know and have learned from the development of the other three houses from authority to process, we can now think about how to approach meaning from a process point of view. And this is what I'd like to address here. The journey model is a way to think about how we could turn meaning from an authority-based system to a process-based system. So I'd like to lay out a brief overview of the journey model, which I capitalized with the J-O and the Y capitalized, and propose that as something that has both been personally tested as well as shared with lots of other folks who have explored it and used it to create their own meaning. It's interesting to look at art's unique role. Art has been used by the other houses over the millennia, but certainly the 20th century, art has been used by individuals to discover and express their unique meaning, to capture and to codify and to figure out their own meaning in their lives. And art is a beautiful tool for that, whether it's music, whether it's visual art, poetry, so on and so forth. And it's certainly something that's available for us to use, but it doesn't really work as a process method. It isn't something we can simply use. We've got to go and learn the particular craft and then go down that path. So art is a great accompaniment for the journey, but not necessarily available to most folks other than artists themselves. So we've got to keep looking for a simple process that can do the job. So the question then arises, really, where does meaning come from? Now, as we looked at the other houses, we realized that we've got to deal with each of these areas on its own terms. We have to devise a unique system around that particular house. So when we are looking at phenomenon, we're trying to figure out what is true with a capital T about the world around us, about everything that we observe. And so the scientific method is this beautiful way to discover what is true. And the things that come up that arise out of that are all in the quest for a fundamental truth. Whereas in rights, we have to continually figure out what we can live with and what we believe are the correct set of rights. And so we have this negotiation process with rights. Resources occurs differently, where we have individuals or entities that provide services, they propose and provide things, and then the marketplace, people decide if they want those things or not. And so we've had to devise unique processes around each of these unique houses. And so when we think about meaning, the biggest thing we've got to come to terms with is that meaning is perhaps the inverse of the house of phenomenon, in the sense that meaning comes completely from within. It is completely subjective. There is no such thing as the meaning of life. You take any two individuals who might even profess the same philosophy, the same idea of what life is, and as they get down to it in any particular parts, you'll find lots and lots and lots of differences. Any one way, there's millions of interpretations for any one way that people subscribe to. And so the core thing we have to realize about meaning is meaning just doesn't work like phenomenon. It certainly doesn't work like rights or resources. But it's exactly the opposite, which is also precisely why we can't use the scientific method as a tool for meaning, because at the core assumption of the scientific method is that there are universally true things that we can go discover, whereas in meaning there is no such thing. And in fact, this is where we see a lot of the challenges with meaning, where folks try to discover absolute truths in the context of meaning, and then fight over them because underlying meaning is simply not doesn't work the same way. And so we've got to really realize that meaning is something that comes from within. The individual the entity on the journey, on their own meaning journey, is the one that is deciding and figuring out what is meaningful and how meaning works for them. So when we think about a journey model, we can actually now come to a very, very simple way to understand how we go through the stages of meaning. There really are 4 stages of meaning. The first stage is where you get your meaning from an outside source that you didn't choose. So think about our childhoods, think about how we grow up. We get meaning from external sources, usually our parents, culture, our religion that we're born with, so on and so forth. All of these give us a sense of meaning, and they give us the idea of what is meaningful in our lives and how we should run those parts of our lives. And many people will be more than happy to exist here. If that meaning program works for you, then you are perfectly well within your rights to use that meaning program that someone else created. And if it works for you, because you are the person deciding if that meaning is correct for you, then you can run with it. And many people do. They don't have any need to change the meaning program that they get from an external source. But what does happen to some others is that they go through the next stage where they go looking for an alternative source of meaning. And in this example, you might be raised with one thing, but then you go and say, well, I don't really like that, so I'm going to go and figure out, I was raised Republican and I believed in Republican ideas, but now I'm going to go become a Democrat. Or I was raised a Buddhist and I'm going to become a Christian. So what people do here in the second stage is they choose an alternative source of meaning. Now, in the first and second stages, the work here is still very much the same. Even though you're not choosing in the first stage and you're choosing in the second, you're still using an outside program, if you like. Someone wrote a program of meaning. They said, this is how this works. These are the truths. And you are subscribing to those externally created models of meaning. And again, many people will choose a secondary stage of meaning, a secondary source of meaning, and be perfectly happy with it. They'll live out their lives inside of that second stage. The key thing to observe here with these first 2 stages is that the meaning comes from compliance with an authority. So the authority comes up with the answer. You then try to live underneath that construct, that meaning construct. Now, some people might repeat. They might find the second stage they chose unsatisfactory, and they might go get an alternative next new meaning model, and they might do that over and over again. And we call that just stage 2 looping, where you repeat the source of. You can go find infinite sources of external meaning. And in fact, in our world today, there are just so many alternatives that you could spend a lifetime exploring multiple different sources of meaning. And that's fine. Again, this is a perfectly reasonable way to do it, because you are the person deciding whether that meaning is true for you, works for you. Now, some people will finally exit the second stage as well, and will decide that no, in fact, I want to be the creator and author of my own meaning. And so what they do there at the end of that second stage, when they finally complete that second stage, is they fire all the external sources of meaning, anyone outside of themselves as a source of meaning. They fire all those sources, and then they take on that responsibility for themselves. So using our analogy of a program, like a computer program, in the first 2 stages, you're running someone else's computer program that they wrote for you. In the third stage, you decide to take on the job of authoring your own program, and you start to assemble the program of meaning that works for you. And what's beautiful is you can use a lot of the things that you went through in the first stage and the second stage, and things that are out there in the world. You can use all of that to create your unique meaning program for yourself. And there's nothing stopping you from doing that. In fact, any of the stage 1 or stage 2 meaning programs were all done by other individuals who did exactly that. They created their own meaning programs, and others found those to be useful, so they used them. So you're not doing anything that other people haven't done before. But you are now taking responsibility for that, and you are going to write a program that is unique to yourself. You are the sole author of it, and you are the sole customer, or the sole recipient of that meaning program. So as long as it works for you, you keep doing that. And this third stage really never ends. Once you're in the third stage, you continually curate and author and modify and amend your own program. It's very much the same thing as a stage 3 process in the other houses. Works the exact same way here. Now, once you've done this in multiple aspects of your being, then you enter into the fourth stage, where you start to integrate all these unique lines of music in your fugue to make one beautiful sound called the Song of You. So that's what really happens. So now we've got a very simple model, process-based model, that allows us to see where we are in this journey of meaning, and use meaning and create the meaning from these 3 different vantage points, and then the fourth being the integration of all of our 3s. The key action then in meaning is stewardship. What we're really doing is helping a being to become itself. We're starting with ourselves. We are stewarding ourselves to a totally unique expression. Now, of course, it's important to note, if my stewardship of my meaning involves killing other people, well, that's going to be taken care of by the second house. I can't create meaning that is in violation of the laws that we've agreed to and the rights that we have for other people. So meaning does not overwhelm or take over from the other houses either. Just like the other houses don't take over for meaning, meaning isn't get to overwhelm the other houses. I don't get to use my meaning method to create an alternative reality of how gravity works. That would be a mistake of using meaning in the area of understanding phenomena. This is a problem that people get into a lot, where they're using their meaning construct, whether from stage 1, 2, or 3, to then understand the world around them. And that's where they get a conflict, because they're using the wrong tool for the wrong situation. So this idea of stewardship is helping you become yourself. And then, of course, you can take that approach to others as well. You help other individuals to do that for themselves, and help them to discover their unique meaning. So the proposal would then be to use something like the JOurneY model that we've outlined here to steward your own meaning. So you take your own journey and you start to use that. You take the JOurneY model or something like it, and you start to analyze and understand your own journey. And from that, you actually discover and develop the unique meaning of your life. So the same fugue concepts apply here. We now can look at ourselves as an entity, a being that has multiple aspects, and each of these aspects can go through its own meaning journey. So our physical identification, our race identity, our biology, our gender, our sexuality. These are physical dimensions that can go through these 3 stages. Our work, how we approach our work. We might start with stage 1, we might choose a stage 2 model of work, we might choose an alternative stage 2 model of work, and then choose our own model of meaning and how we want to approach work and what it means to us. In the same way, we might approach our spiritual. Now, someone might be born into the second stage. They maybe had parents with differing spiritual practices, and they let the individual choose. So they might have chosen one or the other of their parents' models of spirituality, and then perhaps gone to the third stage and decided to create their own spiritual understanding of the world. And likewise with relationships. I've just outlined 4 core aspects of our human fugue here, of our individual being, but you can see that this could get pretty interesting and pretty complex as we look at different aspects of our life and how we approach all those aspects. And then stage 4 is when all these core aspects are stage 3ing, and now we can start to integrate all of these lines, these independent melodies, to create a beautiful piece of music that is our life. So the key goal of this meaning becomes to build a unique house of meaning for ourselves. That we as individuals get to do that. We all get to build a unique house of meaning and create one that is beautiful in our own eyes, that helps us to see and interact with ourselves and the world around us. And that really becomes the goal of the fourth house. The term that I like to use, since these things are come back to my own personal journey, is the idea of finding joy in our being. I say that I myself am bejoying, B-I-J-O-Y-I-N-G, as I'm going on my own personal meaning journey, and we're all bejoying. We're finding the joy in our own beings as we do this process. The reason I like to use the word the gerund is because it gives us a sense that we never accomplish this journey. We never accomplish the final meaning of our lives. We are constantly in process. When something is an ing, when you have a bejoying, they're both a noun and a verb, and that means that this journey of becoming ourselves is something that never ends. Stage 3 and Stage 4 are never-ending journeys. I'd love to rename the Constitution a Constitutioning, just so that it is more aligned with its Stage 3 nature. And now we can realize that any entity can be looked at as a being that is trying to find their own meaning and is on their journey. So we can steward ourselves, we can steward other individuals, our children, we can steward other people in our lives, we can steward our families on their meaning journey, we can steward our communities on their journeys, on their meaning journeys, companies. What you see with the founders of companies is that they are the stewards of those companies. Someone like a Steve Jobs was both the chief executive officer, in other words, he had the economic responsibility in the third house, but he also stewarded the meaning journey of that company, of Apple. And and founders have a unique ability to do that kind of stewardship because they birth these entities, these beings, and take them on their journeys. We can steward cities on their journeys. In Austin, we found that Austin is that city where people are being themselves, in fact, going on their meaning journeys. But that's not necessarily the journey for the meaning for Silicon Valley or San Francisco or New York or DC or whoever it might be. So we have to find and help find cities to find their unique meaning and their unique expression. The same thing goes for countries in the world. So any entity can be stewarded on its journey. I think of Jane Goodall as a steward for chimps. She discovered who they are, and she helps them to become and be themselves. As we understand who chimps really are, we can help them be chimps. Someone like a Cesar Millan is a steward for dogs and their unique expression, and stewarding them to become more of themselves. So what we really have is this journey ahead. We've got this individual journey that all of us can take to steward ourselves through these stages of meaning. It's a challenging journey because there's a lot of self-confrontation that has to go on with that, but it's certainly a worthwhile journey. We can steward other beings on their journey, and of course we need to steward this journey model as we try to develop it and share it and improve on it, so that it can be useful to as many people as possible. And then with all these different fields, let's say I mentioned parenting, work, there's a lot of different fields where we need to create tools and help to steward those meaning journeys. And so there's a lot of work ahead for lots of different people to help meaning, to stand up the house of meaning.